Welcome to Life with Long COVID with me, Paul Clark. It's estimated that around 400 million people are suffering from the effects of what is now called Long COVID globally. There are probably many more people suffering but not able to articulate what is wrong with them. This podcast was started for one reason and one reason only: that those suffering will not feel like they're on their own. Well, hello and welcome to Life with Long COVID. My name is Paul Clark. If you've been around before, welcome back. If you're new to this, welcome also. This podcast is all about living with long COVID, but it also applies to other chronic conditions as well. Many of the things I talk about applicable across the board. So I hope you find by visiting, I hope you find that moment where you think, oh, that's me. I can really identify with that, and you feel a little bit less alone. There's a thing people say when talking about long COVID and chronic illness in general. They always say you just need to listen to your body, what your body wants and what your body needs. And I absolutely get that expression. It sounds very sensible. It sounds like you'd be very gentle with your body. I get it. But the problem is, if you're living with long COVID, listening to your body doesn't sound very wise to me. It's more like listening to something very unreliable, because my body doesn't speak clearly, and my body lies to me, basically. Some days it's like a bit of a whisper, next day it will shout, some days it gaslights me, which kind of brings me on to talking today about control. The control we have, and the control we feel we have when we have chronic illness. As always, I'm not trying to, not running a kind of self-help podcast. This is purely sharing the experience of what it feels like in the hope that it might resonate with you. Because the truth is that a lot of the control we thought we had over our lives, when you go down the path of having chronic illness, you realise that control was never really there in the first place. So having chronic illness you don't really lose control, but you do realise how thin life is, between chaos and control. It makes you realise that. I mean, before I had chronic illness, and I mean really before, I lived with this unspoken assumption that if I did the right things, then things would be generally okay. If I worked hard, if I looked after my health, if I made sensible choices, if I plan ahead, all those sensible things, then life could kind of line up and it will be okay. I'd have some sense of control in my life. I mean, it wouldn't be perfect, because life isn't perfect, but it would be relatively predictable in a fun kind of way. And even when things go wrong in your life, you can believe that with effort, discipline, determination, it can be fixed, right? Or you can at least move forward along this kind of timeline. Illness, chronic illness, seems to expose how thin those beliefs are. I mean, having long COVID hasn't just disrupted my plans for life, if you like. It's dismantled the very idea that planning guarantees anything at all. Like, you can eat well, you can sleep properly, you can pace yourself carefully, you can do all the right things, and you can still wake up in the morning with your body saying, nope, not having it. That's reality. something I've noticed is that we don't actually crave control for its own sake. What we really want is safety. We want borders. Borders is the wrong word. Guardrails, I suppose. And control is an easy way to put those guardrails up, isn't it? It's a good way of getting there. So if I can manage my energy, manage my schedule, manage my symptoms, I can manage my future. And I'll be safe from kind of major disappointment, collapse, or worry about and be fearful of the future. Having long COVID kind of reveals the flaw in that logic, because the moment your body becomes unpredictable, control is no longer a set of guardrails. It's certainly not the set of guardrails you hoped it would be, and instead becomes a source of anxiety, because you plan and you have to cancel, you prepare for things but you crash and you think you've cracked it, and then the rules change again. And the problem is not that you're bad at planning or control. The problem is the control has never carried that much weight to start with. Do you know what I mean? Let's take fatigue management, for example, one of the most talked about symptoms of long COVID. We've talked about before that it's not physical tiredness. There's plenty of physical tiredness going on, but the absolute exhaustion that comes from monitoring yourself, the constant check-ins, like, how do I feel right now? Just before this podcast, I was thinking, how do I feel? Do I feel, have I got enough energy to finish it? Am I going to need to pause all the way through? You have to think, is this tiredness normal, this fatigue normal, or is it going to be dangerous? Shall I avoid cooking dinner today? You have to think, if I'm going to do this today, will it cost me tomorrow? Very regular conversation I have with myself. Do I just go for it, pay for it tomorrow? Or do I be a bit more cautious? If I rest now, am I helping? If I rest too much, am I deconditioning myself? So you become like a project manager, and it's exhausting. I'm my own patient of myself. I'm a project manager of my body. And that constant heightened vigilance just slowly erodes something in you. Because what it means is your life turns into a series of mini risk assessments. Just tiny ones. Should I shower now or later? Should I make that phone call? Should I text that person? Is today a push day? Is today a quiet day? Is every day a quiet day? All of a sudden, control, having some sort of control over my life, is not empowering at all. It's a fragile kind of truce which I have over my body, which I'm constantly negotiating all the time. The dangerous misunderstanding, of course, is that letting go of that control means giving up, especially as we live in a culture that prizes the kind of resilience, grit, fighting back type attitude. But what I want to put to you is that surrender and resignation are not the same things. Resignation says nothing matters. Surrender says this matters too much to lie about it to myself anymore. It matters too much. I can't lie anymore. And this is where long COVID takes you. You can't be passive about it. You've got to be honest about it. You've got to be very honest about your limits, because it helps nobody else if you're not. You've got to be very honest about the unpredictability of your illness. You've got to be honest about how little force changes anything. And that honesty at first feels humiliating, feels stupid, but it's all tied into how you see yourself. Because you get caught up in this kind of control tied to yourself, like the things you should be doing. Well, who am I if I can't push through? Who am I if I don't keep up with everything? Well, who am I if my effort doesn't equal outcome anymore? They are enormous questions that you ask yourself all the time. It kind of all brings us into the illusion, really, of a good system. We go looking for the right system. I've forced myself to try and get the right routines, like for sleep, for supplements, for pacing, all of that stuff. Got systems for everything. My way of trying to control things. And sometimes they help. They genuinely help. The sleep thing helps when I can do it. But there's a grief comes when you realise that no systems can ultimately make you immune. They won't solve anything. They just kind of help. And you can optimise endlessly. You can tweak this, tweak that, and the next day you'll be caught out by a bad day because despite the fact you've done everything right in accordance with your plans, it ain't happening. Your body gives up. And that's where, I think, confusingly, I'm not really explaining this very well, I don't think, but this is where control becomes, this thing which lures you in. If I can figure that out, if I can tweak this system tonight, if I can do that, perhaps things will be under control. I can get some control back in my life. But you can't, because the next bad day comes along and it all comes crashing down. You feel like you can control things, you can control time, how you spend your time, but all that goes out of the whack as well, because you can't really control your own time. You can't think in months and years. You can't think much really tomorrow because you don't know how you're going to be. So you have to measure your life in energy windows. And everything that's asked of you, like everything people say to me, will you do this? Can you do that? I'm like, I hesitate because I can't say yes too far ahead. I can tell you how I feel now, like this minute, but not tomorrow, not this afternoon, not in the next hour. But I'm being realistic. I can't definitely say yes. But I think, and I've spoken about this before, but living in the moment all the time, it helps. Helps. I'm saying well enough now, but I might not be well enough in an hour's time. It's basically shrinking down that sense of control. Trying not to control tomorrow, the next day, the day after. Not getting so caught up in this loop of trying to have systems that constantly let you down, but control what happens in the next minute or the next hour. Tell you what I'm going to do the next minute. Well, actually, after this episode, I'm going to make a cup of tea, and that's all I've got planned. I'm not going to try and think of anything else after that. That's the only really control I've got left. So, does long COVID mean that I don't have any agency or control over my life? No, it doesn't. I do have it. It's just redefined how I view it. And, I can choose to rest without apology. I can choose honesty over all this optimization all the time. I can choose self-compassion when productivity is not on the menu. And that doesn't feel powerful in the way that we've been told to admire in our culture, but it really is. It's about responding wisely in the moment with no larger worries about what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. It's kind of aligning yourself with what's happening rather than placing on yourself outside demands or expectations. The thought that if I do X, I should get Y. If I live well, I'll be rewarded with good health. If I'm careful, everything will be all right. We don't have that luxury with long COVID. What we've got is now. What's happening now? We might not get answers. There might not be an outcome, a productive outcome for where we are now. And it might not be tidy, but it is grounding. And it's grounded in the kind of life which, quite frankly, some people would kill for. There's people like myself before. We were rushing around 100 million miles all day, every day. Yet we are forced to live in the moment and not have that kind of control over our lives. and it's deeply frustrating and deeply stressful, but it's also very freeing, and it's a different way of living. And it's a shift. At some point, I feel like you get so fed up with not having that control, of fighting yourself day by day, of feeling defeated. I think in the end, you adapt and you learn to renegotiate your boundaries and guardrails. And I think it happens slowly. And just recently, I've caught myself thinking, I'm living a different way of life than I did before. And I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. Of course, if you ask me, do I want to go back to Mr. Paul who went about everything and thought I had all his control over life? Maybe. But only with the knowledge I've got now. And the knowledge is we never really have much control anyway. Anything could happen at any moment. And the guardrails we build around our lives are completely, I think, illusionary. Living in the short term, living with what you've got now, literally now with what you've got in your hands, is the only bit you can control. What can I do now, in this moment? And that can be quite freeing, I think. Anyway, I thought I would come on and talk about this. I hope it made sense, because it doesn't always make sense to me. I'm just expressing how I feel about it. It's the loosening and letting go of control and being okay about it, which really is a thing that I've been reflecting on lately. And I hope that it's something in yourself that you might recognise and think, oh yeah, I get that. And actually, I can see myself going in that direction. I'll be back with another episode soon. I'll be back with another episode with Rachel, and we'll be talking about your comments and messages. We're going to read some of those out. We've promised to do that, and we will do that. In the meantime, you can go to www.lifewithlongcovid.co.uk, and you'll find there all the articles and all the podcast episodes I've recorded. You'll find details of my book, Life with Long COVID, which you can purchase on Amazon. And you can also access all of that for free. Or if you're able to and feel drawn to, you can also pay a small subscription every month to support the work that I do. So that's my little bit of sales pitch for the day. But don't feel obligated. I want this content to be for everybody. And I want to hear from you as well. And I bang on about this in every episode, but I love the messages that I get from you. Keep them coming. And as I say, if you go to lifewithlongcovid.co.uk, join the community, you can message me there, we can chat, and just kind of just be amongst other people who get it, because I realise that nobody really gets it unless they're going through it themselves. So, I hope that this coming week you will find space for you. I hope you can come to appreciate this slower, gentler posture towards life that, yes, we've been forced into, but actually has so many benefits as well. A life that says, I will show up as I am, not as I'm expected to be. A life in which you say, I will respond, but only in that moment. And a life where we live without guarantees about what will happen this evening, tomorrow. But still, I hope we manage to live meaningfully. Because it's not the life any of us planned, but it is a life. And sometimes releasing control doesn't shrink it. Maybe sometimes it gives us room to breathe. Wherever you're at on that today, I wish you well. and I'll see you again on the next episode.